Picture this: a crisp autumn evening in 1966, a small town, a seemingly perfect family, and a Halloween night that would spiral into a week of terror no one saw coming. This isn't the plot of a horror movie. It's a real story etched into the dark corners of American history, and it's just one of many. For every infamous serial killer or high-profile gangster we think we know, there are dozens of other cases, equally chilling, that have been lost to time. These aren't just stories of crime. They're stories about people, about communities, and about the moments that shattered their sense of safety forever. Today, we're digging deep into the archives of American crime, unearthing the forgotten tales that are more bizarre, more shocking, and more fascinating than any fiction. We'll journey back to a time before DNA testing and 24-hour news cycles, to a world where a killer could vanish without a trace and a mystery could haunt a town for generations. Our first story takes us to the Gilded Age, a time of immense wealth and staggering poverty, a perfect breeding ground for a new kind of criminal. In the bustling, gaslit streets of Chicago, a charismatic doctor built a hotel that would later be known as the Murder Castle. His name was H. Holmes. While the 1893 World's Fair dazzled millions with its gleaming white city, Holmes was luring unsuspecting victims into his labyrinthine creation. The hotel was a maze of windowless rooms, secret passages, trapdoors, and a basement equipped with a crematorium and acid vats. He charmed his guests, many of whom were young women new to the city, only for them to check in and never check out. The exact number of his victims remains unknown, with estimates ranging from 27 to over 200. Holmes's case was a grim wake-up call, revealing a terrifying predator hiding in plain sight, using the anonymity of a booming metropolis as his hunting ground. His story isn't just about murder. It's about deception on an unimaginable scale and the dark side of American ambition. Let's fast forward a few decades to the Prohibition era, the Roaring Twenties. When we think of this period, we think of Al Capone, speakeasies, and Tommy guns. But away from the major cities, a different kind of terror was unfolding on Osage Nation land in Oklahoma. In the early 1920s, the Osage people became the wealthiest people per capita in the world after vast oil deposits were discovered beneath their reservation. But this newfound wealth brought a curse. A sinister conspiracy, orchestrated by a prominent local cattleman named William Hawley, began to unfold. One by one, wealthy Osage members started dying under mysterious circumstances: poisonings, shootings, bombings. It became known as the Reign of Terror. Hawley, who postured as a friend to the Osage, was systematically marrying his relatives into Osage families and then arranging their murders to inherit their oil rights. Local law enforcement was either corrupt or powerless. The case became so widespread and so horrifying that it prompted the creation of a new federal law enforcement agency, a little group that would eventually become the FBI. It's a harrowing story of greed, betrayal, and racial injustice that was almost erased from our history books. Now, let's travel to Cleveland, Ohio, during the Great Depression. Between 1935 and 1938, a series of gruesome discoveries sent a wave of panic through the city. The dismembered remains of at least 12 victims were found in a bleak, poverty-stricken area called Kingsbury Run. The press dubbed the killer the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run, or the Cleveland Torso Murderer. The victims, both men and women, were often drifters, people from the fringes of society whose disappearances went unnoticed. The killer was methodical, displaying a chilling knowledge of human anatomy. The investigation was led by one of the most famous lawmen of the time, Eliot Ness, fresh off his victory over Al Capone in Chicago. But the Mad Butcher proved to be Ness's white whale. Despite a massive investigation and thousands of interviews, the killer was never officially caught. The case went cold, leaving behind a legacy of fear and one of the most baffling unsolved serial killer cases in American history. The identity of the Mad Butcher remains a subject of intense debate among crime historians to this day. So far, we've explored a con artist's murder palace, a vast conspiracy driven by greed, and an elusive serial killer who stumped a legendary lawman. These stories show that the landscape of American crime has always been more complex and terrifying than we imagine. Let's turn to a case that blurred the lines between high society, passion, and cold-blooded murder. In the mid-20th century, the name Candy Mossler was synonymous with wealth and scandal. She was a beautiful socialite married to a multimillionaire, Jacques Mossler, a man 30 years her senior. Their life seemed like a fairy tale, but behind closed doors, it was a tempest of arguments and infidelity. The story took a dark turn when Candy began an affair with her own nephew, Melvin Lane Powers. Then, one night in 1964, Jacques Mossler was brutally murdered in his Key Biscayne, Florida, apartment. The investigation quickly zeroed in on Candy and Mel. The subsequent trial was a media circus, the trial of the century, before O.J. Simpson. The prosecution painted a picture of a greedy, manipulative woman and her lover, desperate to get their hands on the family fortune. The defense, however, portrayed Candy as a grieving widow and Mel as an innocent victim of circumstance. With a lack of direct evidence and a brilliant defense team, the jury delivered a stunning verdict: not guilty. Candy and Mel walked free, but the cloud of suspicion never truly lifted. They inherited nothing from the will, and the case remains officially unsolved, a tantalizing mystery of wealth, betrayal, and a murder that captivated the nation. Did they get away with it? We'll likely never know for sure. Finally, we journey to the quiet, snow-covered landscape of Villisca, Iowa. In 1912, it was here that one of America's most brutal and perplexing mass murders occurred. On a June morning, the Moore family, 2 parents and their 4 children, along with 2 young houseguests, were found bludgeoned to death in their beds. An axe was left at the scene, leaning against a wall in the downstairs guest bedroom. The crime was shockingly violent, and the small town was plunged into a state of terror and paranoia. What was truly bizarre were the details. The killer had covered all the mirrors and glass in the house with cloths, and a plate of uneaten food was left on the kitchen table. The investigation was chaotic. Suspects ranged from a transient preacher to a state senator to even a rumored traveling serial killer. Despite multiple grand jury investigations and 2 trials, no one was ever convicted. The Villisca Axe Murders tore the community apart, turning neighbors against each other. The house still stands today, a silent monument to an unsolved tragedy, and a chilling reminder that sometimes the most horrific acts of violence happen in the most unlikely of places, and the questions they leave behind can echo for more than a century. From a Gilded Age monster to a prairie conspiracy, from an untouchable socialite to a phantom axe murderer, these cases are more than just grim footnotes in history. They are powerful reminders of the dark complexities of human nature and the enduring power of a good mystery. They show us how our justice system evolved, how media sensationalism can shape public perception, and how some crimes can leave scars on the American psyche that never fully heal. The truth is, the history of this country isn't just about heroes and triumphs. It's also written in the shadows, in the police files of cases that still make us lock our doors at night. Which of these stories did you find the most shocking? Was it the industrial-scale horror of H.H. Holmes, or the intimate, terrifying betrayal in the Villisca house? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one, and I'm genuinely curious to hear what you think. And if you're refascinated by the darker side of history and want to uncover more forgotten crimes with me, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We're just getting started. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next investigation.